Hello, this is Jan from JC Web Tech. I publish tutorials with hacks and tricks for WordPress, Elementor, and web design in general. And today I have this special follow-up video on a previous tutorial that I published, where I explained how to create this layout and, most importantly, these on-click interactions where you click on some element and you hide or show other element on your Elementor website. I used jQuery in my previous tutorial, and I would like to explain further what are the differences between jQuery and JavaScript, or what is jQuery in general. Also, one subscriber had an issue with the dependencies on jQuery, which is this kind of situation where jQuery can be to a disadvantage. And anything in general, I think it's important to understand what jQuery is, what it does in WordPress and Elementor ecosystem. So even though we are not currently building anything similar to this, I think this tutorial will also help you to understand what jQuery is and what is it doing in WordPress. So you can go watch also the previous tutorial, but I will also go very quickly through what is going on here before we start creating the same thing in vanilla JavaScript. So as I said, we are building this on-click interaction, and I will just quickly show you what is going on in the Elementor builder. So here I actually have all three pictures and sign up form. And I have added, which is very important, I have added IDs and classes, which I can reference in my jQuery. So the first picture is with ID 01 and the class changing images, which it's sharing with the other images. And these have class hidden because they are in the initial state, except the first one, they will be hidden. Same here and here. So ID with its number, class changing image, and for those that are not initially visible, you have class hidden. And for the navigation, I have ID show underscore 01, because when you click on it, it will show the image with number 01. And analogically shows underscore 02 and class our nav. And again, same here. Now I will also show you the CSS styles that I am using. Let me quickly fix this underline. I don't recall it being there before, so maybe Elementor changed his output. I'll grab this class. I'll go back to Elementor, custom CSS, and I will add this class also here. Okay, so now we are underlining only the text. So what is going on here? I have a style for the class hidden. I have this special code that the images or any element that has a class hidden is completely hidden on the front end, but in the editor, except when I am now in the CSS editing mode, it will be semi-transparent, so I know it will not be immediately on the front end, but I can edit it and it's more convenient than it just be completely hidden. Then this line referencing our navigation is just allowing us to have this link-like pointer cursor style. And when the navigation item is active, it is underlined. Simple as that. This CSS below already doesn't belong to our example. So the most important IDs unique to each image and sharing one class changing images, and the navigation the same unique IDs and sharing the same class. So now I will briefly explain this jQuery code that we were using in the previous example. So basically need to pay attention only to this one part because then it repeats. And this is this is saying that when everything on the website is ready, when we click on element with ID show01, it will hide all the images, and with a fade effect it will reveal the image with ID 01, and it will also remove the class myActive from the navigation, which means it will remove the underlining, and it will add the myActive class to the active navigation item. So once again, what is going on here? So when we click on show_1, we see the first picture. Like now I clicked on show_3, which means that we are seeing this picture that is ID 03, which is here. So this code basically repeats for each navigation item. And we click here, we see the form. So now what I want to do is to simply rewrite this code without using jQuery, just using vanilla JavaScript. What is actually this jQuery that I'm talking about? Let me show you. So here, when I go to inspect and a network and I refresh, I see everything that is being loaded, and I will filter for CSS, and I will see this jQuery file being loaded here. So when I preview it, I see this file full of JavaScript code. And what is this doing for us is that it has some, you can see that it has over 4,000 lines of code. And what is it doing is that it has these pre-made functions in JavaScript that will make our life simpler, and these kind of things that we usually want to do when we are building some user interface, they are already simplified there. So that, for example, we search for this fade toggle function that we are using here, if I search for it, it is here, and it's giving the browser some instructions how to reveal this element. So instead of you always writing all this code, you just reference it as a jQuery, fade toggle, and the browser, after going through this file, it will understand what you want to achieve. But the downside is that the browser first needs to read this file in order to be able to understand your jQuery commands. So if we try to avoid that, we can use vanilla JavaScript. That is, nowadays it's more modern, because from the times when jQuery was created, the native JavaScript got much enhanced and got more powerful. So there is not really need for jQuery, although it's still a little bit more convenient in some scenarios, and since it's already always loaded, usually always loaded in WordPress anyway, it's convenient to use it. But I want to make my case here that if you are really just starting, you can avoid it completely and just dive into JavaScript. So if we start rewriting these commands, here I will be just copy pasting. You can find it over the internet. I did that before, just for the sake of being a little faster. I already prepared everything. So the equivalent of this jQuery document ready in JavaScript is @listener. So it's basically doing the same. It's waiting for the browser to load all the HTMLs, and only then this part is happening. Next, next line is this jQuery show. I will leave it there for a second and copy below the JavaScript version. So you can see it makes sense. It is this saying that in the HTML document, get the element with ID show 0_1. We don't no longer need to put this hashtag because we are specifying that it's by ID here. And on click on this element, run a function, which is function. It's like chunk of comments inside this function. So we can delete this jQuery version and leave this one here. To continue, we substitute the next one. Now we are searching for a changing image class, which is specified by this dot. In JavaScript, we have this specification element by class name. We cannot just say hide, it doesn't exist in JavaScript. We need to set its style property display to none. If you know some CSS, you will recognize this display none property. It will change it, but not quite. It's not really going to work. Personally, I didn't know it wouldn't, and was the first thing that I did. I will show you what is the trap just in a second. Let me continue rewriting so we can remove this hide command. And now instead of this one, we will find the element by ID again, and again instead of show, we will use display block. Now analogically for the displaying the image, now we will use this command. It says get element class by name, because here we are searching for a class name, and we want to remove from all of the elements with this class name the class, another class myActive, which we did by this jQuery. So I will remove it as well. And last one, we want to add the class just to this one, this particular one with ID show 0_1. So let me update the file, and now it's working because I didn't update it. So once again, what is going on here is on click on this particular element with this ID show 0_1, I am revealing this image, etc. And now if I refresh the browser, it is not going to work, and we can see why. The console, we are missing some bracket. So there's an extra bracket. So when I remove it, it should just tell me another error. So we only changed the code for the first navigation, and by clicking on it we are getting this error. I had to Google for a little, and I found out that you cannot, in vanilla JavaScript, you cannot change some properties of different elements of one class this easily, because like this we are referencing this whole chunk of elements with this class, and it just cannot do this so easily. So what we need to do, and here it's where it complicates a little and kind of visible why it's also still more convenient to use jQuery for these very simple things. So I need to substitute this code by this little bit more complex one. Since here this part is the same, we are still searching for this element with the class changing image, but we cannot just simply put style display none after it, but we need to run a cycle through all elements, and at each element we can change the style. If you know loops, this is the for loop. I'm not just really saying that for the amount of elements that there is in the file with the class changing image. For this number, do for each of them, on each of them change the style display none. Hope this makes any sense. And if I would save this, I need to delete this first line. Just left it there to see the difference. And if I would run this, I would run into the same error here. This line, I need to again use this code with cycle, with this for cycle. So now, unless I made some silly mistake, it should be working. Yeah, you can see it is working, and now we have this hybrid code that for the first navigation element we have it in vanilla JavaScript, and for the others we have it in jQuery. But now it would be really tiresome to copy this entire chunk of code, or it would be kind of non-efficient. So what we want to do is to outsource this little code, these snippets that will completely repeat in each. I will substitute these lines that repeat completely in each of these sections. So it's better to create a function, which, as I said previously, function is sort of a place that where you outsource the code and you can reference it from inside the code. So it means that I created this function hide all images, where I put the code, all this code from here. So I can now substitute this by hide all images and make it a little prettier. Then I can leave the document get element by ID, which is going to work. But I will also create a function for changing the navigation. So I called it remove nav highlight, which means that we will remove the class responsible for underlining this navigation, which means that I can get rid of this code here and substitute it by the function reference. I can remove this white space. So with this we are referencing this code here, and with this we are referencing this code, and I simply need to copy it over 3 times and change here the indexes. Okay, so this is the final code. We can verify it's working. Everything is working almost the same, except we don't have this fade effect because it's just a little harder to make it in JavaScript than just using a simple command. So we will do a little compromise here. But beside that, it's doing the same job as jQuery. And we got rid of this dependency on the jQuery library. But as you can see, we have a little bit more complex code. And if we wanted to have this fade effect, it would get still a little bit more complex. So I really just wanted to I hope I didn't scare you from writing some JavaScript or jQuery code. I just wanted to more like make the point of the advantages and disadvantages of utilizing jQuery. I think that advantage is that it's somehow more straightforward and simple, at least to do very standard things. But on the other hand, you are always dependent on the loading of the whole jQuery library first, so you can potentially run into some issues. And perhaps even the jQuery in some very far future will be removed from WordPress one day, maybe. If you are really trying to look into some interactions, learning some JavaScript or maybe jQuery, I would maybe recommend choosing the path of going with the vanilla JavaScript, although it's going to be a little bit more painful. I believe it will pay off in the longer run and you will learn a little bit more modern and up-to-date things. So I hope this was helpful and informative. And yeah, if you like this kind of tutorials and guides, please subscribe or hit that like button. And I will see you in the next one.